So let's get started with 12A. What this unit we're going to be working on is solving equations, which we have done a lot of. However, this time, they're going to be some more sort of intense equations. More numbers, more variables, particularly variables on both sides of the equal sign. Okay, so when we are working on these, our goal is to get our variable, so if it's x, get the variables to one side and then the numbers to the other side. What side you choose, it doesn't matter. I usually bring things to the left because I like my variables showing up first, but you don't have to be as picky as we had to be with the inequalities because an equal sign, it doesn't matter what side numbers and variables are on. Okay? So let's get started. We're going to do a handful of these together. I'm going to let you guys take some time to work on some independently, and we'll come back to check them. All right? We'll see if we can get this first part done before our lunch break. Otherwise, we'll pick it up after lunch. So let's look at number 1 together. So notice here we have an x on the left, right? It says 4x, and then there's a 2x on the right. So we just want that variable of x showing up once. So we want to get them on the same side. Again, which side? It doesn't matter. You can either bring the 2x to the left or the 4x to the right. Does anybody have a preference?
Let's do 4x to the right.
Okay, so if we do 4x to the right, that means to move that 4x over, it's a positive 4x, so we have to subtract 4x. If anybody can't see at any time, please let me know and I can make things larger. So when I move that 4x, it's going to cancel, but I still have a positive 8 on that left-hand side. Now we need to watch our signs. On the right-hand side, it's saying 2x minus 4x. So those are what we call like terms. Please note, the x's do not disappear. It's like saying 2 apples and 4 apples. It doesn't mean that the apple just goes away. What we have is 2x minus 4x, which gives me negative 2x. So that letter x is still there. What changes is that coefficient. So 2 minus 4 is negative 2, and I keep the x attached. Now I want x to be fully alone. It says negative 2x, so how do I undo that negative 2? We divide. It's saying negative 2 times x, so I divide by negative 2, and 8 divided by negative 2 is negative 4. On the right, those negatives 2 cancel, and I'm left with x. Questions? Okay, let's look at number 2. So give people a moment to copy that problem down if you don't have it printed out. So we have negative 9x plus 20 equals 6x minus 10. So again, we have variables on both sides. We have negative 9x and then we have 6x. We also have numbers on both sides, 20 and negative 10. Okay? This time, I'm going to bring the x's to the left. So I'm going to first take this 6x. It's a positive 6x, and I'm going to subtract it to move it over to this left-hand side. So I subtract 6x from both sides. And notice, guys, when I'm subtracting it, I'm lining it up with the 9x, not with the 20, because I'm putting my x's together. So I have negative 9x minus 6. We're at negative 9, getting even more negative. That gives me negative 15, and I keep that x attached. Remember, on this side, I still have a 20, so I need to bring down that plus 20. Then I have my equal sign. I subtracted 6x from 6x, so that cancels, but I'm still left with the negative 10. So watch your signs, don't drop things. Is everybody okay with that? Okay.
That's the final answer?
No. We're trying to solve for x. So the first step is just to get those variables to the one side. Now, what I have left over is problems like we've done before. How do I get this x alone? What do I need to get rid of next? Very good. Now we get the number parts to the other side. So I'm going to move over that positive 20 by subtracting it. I'm left with negative 15x equals negative 10 minus 20. We're getting even more negative, is negative 30. And what would be my last step? Dividing. Very good, Max. Right? It's saying negative 15 times x. So to get x alone, we have to undo by dividing by negative 15. Those negative 15s cancel, and I'm left with x equals a negative divided by a negative is a positive, and 30 divided by 15 is 2. So x equals 2. Any questions so far? Okay, just give people 30 more seconds to copy anything they need, and then we'll continue on with...
Why is it minus 15 if we're doing the opposite of... So we have 15x, so wouldn't we add 15?
What step are you on? Let me just use orange. Are you talking about like right here?
Negative 15x equals negative 30. And then we did...
Dividing. Because this is saying negative 15 times x.
Okay.
So to undo multiplication, we use division. If it said something like this, Tim, x minus 15, take a look at the screen. If it said x minus 15 equals negative 30, then we would go and we would add. Does that make sense, the difference? Couldn't quite hear you, but I don't hear anything, so.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Anyone else have any questions? All right, so let's look at number 3. So for number 3, again, our goal is to focus on those variables. So right now I have variables showing up twice. We want to get them to one side. It's your preference of where you move it. Like I said, see how in the 2 problems above, how the x's are on different sides? I prefer this way with the x on that left-hand side, just because when we read an answer, we usually say x equals. It doesn't quite matter. But because I prefer that, what I would do is I would try to move this 5x over to the left. That would be what I would do. But it's okay if you prefer to move that negative 3x to the right. Okay? Either way is correct. So I'm going to start with moving that 5x. It's a positive 5x, right? It's saying 24 plus 5x. So how do I undo plus 5x? We subtract 5x. So I'm going to do that to both sides. When I do that, on this left-hand side, nothing goes with that 8. So I keep that 8. I have negative 3x minus 5x. That's going to make negative 8x, right? Negative 3 minus 5 is negative 8. Equals. On the right-hand side, there's still a 24, but 5x minus 5x canceled. Any questions? Okay, now the good news is we only have that variable showing up once. So we only have that variable showing up once. Here it is. So I need to get rid of everything else. Where I'm putting an arrow, that 8 is what's least attached. I want to move that. So how do I undo that 8 where my arrow is? Add, subtract, multiply, divide. Subtract. Very good. Okay, so I'm going to subtract that 8 from the left, which means I have to do it to the right. So that 8 cancels, but I'm still left with the negative 8x. And then 24 minus 8 gives me 16. All right, Tim, to clarify now, to make sure you understood what you were asking before, what would my last step be?
Divide by negative 8.
Perfect, good. It's saying, even though there's that negative sign, right, it's really saying negative 8 times x. So to undo multiplication, we use division. That cancels. And a positive divided by a negative will give me a negative answer. So we got x equals negative 2.
So for the first one, we did minus 4 because that was on the left.
You could,
for these ones,
you could have done, you could have done on number 1, you could have chose to subtract 2x first. That's where I keep saying it. Right. It doesn't matter. It's your choice.
Okay.
So on number 3, if you wanted to add 3x first, you could have done that. Okay. So with that being said, your exact steps on your paper may not look exactly like another student's exact steps, but as long as you're using the correct undoing of operations, you know, you're adding when you're supposed to add, subtracting when you're supposed to subtract, you should still come to the same final outcome. Okay. So let's look at number 4. Okay. Somebody tell me what you want to do first.
I just subtracted the 9.
You subtracted 9x?
Yeah.
Good. Does anyone want to do anything else?
I just want to, Eva just texted me saying her internet went out and that's why she left.
Okay, perfect. Can you just tell her to keep trying? I understand that's going to happen this week. Thank you.
All right.
So Max said he's going to subtract 9x. Does anyone want to do a different step? Great. I like Max's idea, but just so we're all clear, there's really 3 other steps I could do. I like to focus on the variable first, and I like to bring that variable to the left. So that's why I like Max's best. But I could subtract, don't copy anything right now. I could subtract 7x to both sides. That's okay, right? To undo a plus 7, we subtract it. I also could do, let me erase this. I also could subtract 14 to both sides. But I like to focus on those variables first. So that's why there are lots of different operations that we can do, but I like to try to go in a nice organized fashion. So let's start with what Max said. Let's subtract the 9x so that we at least focus on getting those variables to the same side first. And I always line them up with the other variables, right? I'm not lining up the 14 and the 9. I'm lining up the 7 and the 9 because they both have variables. So now I have 14. 7x minus 9x is negative 2x. On the right-hand side, those 9x's cancel, but I still have a positive 2. We okay? Okay, now my variables are to the left, so I need to move the numbers to the right, which means I'm going to subtract 14. It's a positive 14, right? There's a minus sign after it, but the 14 itself is positive. So I'm going to subtract 14. Cancel. I'm left with negative 2x equals 2 minus 14 is negative 12. Okay, make sure, like I said, our operations, that we're all clear with those with negatives. If you need a calculator every once in a while, that's fine. And now we will divide by negative 2. So negative 2's cancel. I'm left with x. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. Any questions there? I'm trying to see the chat because somebody typed in something. It's not letting me right now. So if anyone has something really important, please just say it out loud. But I will get to that chat after I stop the share. Okay, here's what I would like you to do is I would like you to try 5 and 6 right now on your own. I'll give you, a couple of minutes to try those. When you have answers, you can use the private chat. So you can say, question 5, x equals whatever. And then 6, x equals, again, whatever. 6 has one slight change to it, but it's actually a little easier, which we will discuss. All right, but try those, and then we will go over them step by step. Go for it. I'm just going to scroll the screen up. A couple people just were checking questions there. If anyone needs to see any others that we have done, you need to copy anything, please let me know. Remember when you're doing these, guys, that you're showing all the work and that you're showing the work like I'm doing. That way I know that you're actually doing these and not copying something. So please make sure that you're doing those fully.
So for number 5, if I added 8 first, then I add it to the 6, it would cancel out the 8, and I would have negative 11 is 5 plus 2x.
Yep.
All right.
So then you'd want to move your numbers to the left. Now, I'm not going to do exactly the way you're going to do, but it'll prove the point that either way works, okay? As long as your rest of your steps are correct. Give you guys like 2 more minutes, and then we will talk about them. Some of you guys have some correct answers that you have submitted. Okay, let's look at 5 and 6, okay? I want to make sure we get through 5, 6, sorry about that, 5, 6, 7, and 8 before lunchtime, and then we'll have sort of covered all the different types. So for number 5, a couple of people submitted answers, and they looked good, okay? And there's lots of ways we can do this. So Tim had said he was going to add 8x. I'm going to add 6x. But again, mine and Tim's answers should end up being the same. So I'm adding 6x because it says negative 6x. I'm going to bring that to the left because I like that variable on the left-hand side. If you did it the other way, just wait until we get that final answer to see if you got it correct first, okay? So now I have negative 11. Negative 8 plus 6 gives me negative 2x. On the right, we have 5, and those 6x's cancel. Next, I have my x on my left-hand side, so I need to get rid of the numbers. I'm going to add 11. The 11s will cancel. I'm left with negative 2x equals 16. And now I divide by negative 2, and we get x equals negative 8. Tim, did you get x equals negative 8 with your method?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, so if you did what Tim did, where he said I added 8x first, that's fine. And then he would subtract 5. He would have just had positive 2x equals negative 16 at one point. And so we divide negative 16 divided by positive 2 still gives me the negative 8. Right? So that's why I'm saying there's multiple ways to get to the correct answer. It's just that you need to make sure to watch your signs and you're using the correct operations. All right, let's take a look at number 6. So here is where 6 is different. Notice on number 6 what I'm underlining. Tell me about those two things. Do you know how to do that? Can you actually put those together right away? We can, right? It's not like here, don't write anything down what I'm doing. Notice what I'm circling in orange on number 5. One of those was a number and one of them had an X with it. So you can't put them together. On number 6, what I underlined are both numbers. What we call those are like terms. I can actually do that. So if you can actually simplify something on one side before moving it from left to right, do so. So I'm going to actually put that together. Negative 12 minus 1 is negative 13. On the right-hand side, it's a 7 and a 14x. Those are not like terms. One of them has an x and one of them doesn't, so I just have to copy it as is. Okay, so if there are like terms, try to put those together first. Now, the good news is there's only one variable. So how do I get this x where I'm putting an arrow? How do I get that x alone? I'm going to get rid of the 7. So I subtract 7 to both sides. Negative 13 minus 7 is negative 20. On the right, the 7's canceled. Don't forget that says negative 14x. And now to get x alone, we divide by negative 14. This one does not divide nice and pretty, but let's remember, a negative divided by a negative is a positive, right? So I get 20 over 14 equals x. Can I do anything else with 20 over 14? Do those numbers have anything in common? 20 and 14, do they have any number in common?
You can simplify.
Yeah, we can simplify. Very good. They both have a 2 in common. So 20 divided by 2 is 10, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So we always want to reduce those fractions if possible. Any questions? Okay, I'm going to leave that there for about 30 more seconds, and then we're going to look at 7 and 8. All right, is everyone okay for me to move on? let's look at number 7. So this problem as well has a lot going on, right? There's 6 different pieces really. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to focus first just on, and you don't need to do this, I'm just highlighting so you can all see. I'm just going to focus on this side here. Are there any like terms? Are there any parts that I can actually put together right now? Can anyone tell me?
Four and two. Or
I'm going to circle them. Those 2 orange parts are like terms because neither of them have x's. So we can literally put those together. What is 4 minus 8? What's 4 minus 8, guys?
-4.
-4. So 4 minus 8 is -4. I can't put that 2x with either of those, so I just copy 2x. So that's me combining like terms on that left-hand side. Now let's go and look at the right-hand side. Are there any like terms on that right-hand side? So I'm going to use green to circle. Are there anything that can be put together?
3x and 5x.
Good, Max. These 2 guys, and I'm going to put the sign with it, both have x's with them. So I can put those 2 together. So what is 3x and 5x? It makes 8x. Good. And I still have then the plus 8. Okay? So I combined my like terms. Now that I did that, now I'm going to move from side to side, right? There's nothing else like right here that I'm doing an underline right there. I can't put those together. So now that I can't do anything on each side, I move from one side to the other. Your choice, right? Here's where people will differ. Maybe you're going to subtract 2x. I'm going to subtract 8x because, like I said, I like to bring those variables to the left-hand side. So I now have -4. 2x minus 8x is -6x. Our 8x's cancel, and I'm left with positive 8. I don't know why I put that positive. It doesn't really matter. Just 8. Now we're going to add 4, right? Our x's are on the left, so now I move the numbers to the right. 4's cancel. I'm left with -6x. And 8 plus 4 makes 12. This one is nice because now we divide by -6, and that goes in evenly. Positive divided by a negative is a negative, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. So x equals -2. Any questions? Okay, so always look to see if we can combine like terms and then move from side to side. In those first few that we did, there weren't like terms, so we jumped to moving from side to side. All right, last one before we take our lunch break. So on number 8, who can tell me what you're going to do first here?
The parentheses.
Very good, Alyssa. We are going to use what we call the, anyone know that property? Distributive property, yes. So we are, I think that was Alyssa who chimed in before. Was that Alyssa or Ashley? I apologize if I missed it. But we are, good, nice. We're going to chime in with, we're going to start by distributing that 2 into the parentheses. So I'm going to just copy the 3 minus 5x. And now I distribute. 2 times 10x makes 20x. And 2 times -1 is -2. Now we look. Are there any like terms? So I'm just going to underline. Tell me right here what I underlined. Can I put those together? No. One has an x and one doesn't. So I'm not going to do that. Can I, on the other side, can I put what I'm underlining here? Can I put those together?
No.
No. So since there's no like terms, I now move from side to side. Your choice of what you move. You know me, I like to bring the variable to the left. So I'm going to move the 20x over. But if you moved the 5x, that's a-okay. So now I have 3. Negative 5x minus 20x is negative 25x. Those 20s cancel, equals negative 2. What comes next?
Subtracted 3.
Subtract 3. Very good. So those people that are engaged and participating, I can tell are really doing a great job, and you're going to you're going to do well with this. Those of you who are just sitting back, please make sure you're engaged, okay? If you're following along with each step, that's good. But if you're not, you're going to have some issues, right? So we subtract our 3. That leaves me with negative 25x. Negative 2 minus 3 is negative 5. And last but not least, we now divide by negative 25. Those 25s cancel. I'm left with x. What happens on that right-hand side?
Divide.
We're dividing. Negative divided by a negative is a positive. Does it become 5?
No, it becomes negative 5.
Careful. Good participation. I appreciate that.
Fraction.
It's a fraction. We have a smaller number. So our negative over a negative is a positive, and it's really saying 5 over 25. But do those numbers have anything in common?
Yeah.
A 5, right? So if I divide 5 by 5, we get 1, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. So I get x equals 1/5.